everybody, it's Curtis, the exhibits buyer for Ripley's Believe It or Not again, and today I'd like to show you some really cool Star Wars items belonging to actor Richard LeParmentier. Now, I'm sorry if I kind of messed up his last name, but I'm fairly certain I said it pretty accurately. But these are some items that we bought from his estate after he passed away, and I'd like to highlight a few of them. The one that I really am going to dive into in a second here is this. This is his original script. Now, he was most famously known, for those of you who don't know the character just by his real name, he was most famously known as Admiral Motti, and it's basically the guy who Vader first force choked. So it's kind of a really neat part that he had. And we're going to dive into this script because there's some things I want to show you about this. But in addition to the script, it also came with some of his personal belongings. For those of you who right off the top of your head, like I said, don't know who that was, there's his character, Admiral Motti, being force choked by Vader. Fun fact, he actually practiced this in his dressing room to the point where he actually was able to control the spasms in his neck to give the impression that he was actually being force choked by Vader. Here's another shot of him in some scenes with General Tarkin, Princess Leia, and then a promotional photograph of his kind of showing, you know, the scene and especially where he was being choked by Vader. It also comes with came with a few other things. You know, he was an honorary member of the Rebel Legion. This particular one is from the Spanish base. And then also he was a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award as well, just for his overall acting. And this is one of those awards right here. But like I said, while these are all really cool pieces, I really want to dive into this because this is the script from the very first Star Wars movie. And most people know it either as Star Wars or Star Wars A New Hope. But this one has a cool fact about it, or behind the scene. This one has the original title, The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the journal, of the Wills, by George Lucas. Now, like I said, went through a couple of different name changes. Could you imagine if his name had actually been Luke Starkiller instead of Luke Skywalker? Now, Richard actually originally auditioned for the role of Han Solo, and fun fact, the audition tapes for that movie were actually given out as audition tapes for the 1976 horror movie Carrie as well. And his audition for Han Solo and those audition tapes is what led him to be cast as the principal in the 1976 movie Carrie. Now, his annotations are also included in here, which is really what I want to show you guys. This is obviously his main scene here where he goes into the Death Star, or where, you know, in the Death Star, he's talking with Vader. He crossed out some lines here. It looks like at one point he even meant to say, Lord Vader is right. His methods are antiquated. I didn't pronounce that properly, I don't think, but you guys get it. There's a few things there, and then he only had a few lines, but one of his lines is probably one of the most famous, or one of the lines that he was involved in is one of the most famous lines from Darth Vader, and I'm going to go ahead and get a close-up on this because you Star Wars fans are going to love this. Here is where he starts being choked by Darth Vader. And you can see here, suddenly Motti chokes and starts to turn blue under Vader's spell. And here is that famous line from Vader, "I find your lack of faith disturbing." What an iconic line. Everybody knows that. And how cool is it that this guy got to be involved in that scene, in that line? Really, really awesome. This particular script was the revised fourth draft from about 1976, but there were a few different ones that came out. And obviously, they settled on the eventual name of Star Wars, changed the name from Luke Starkiller to Luke Skywalker, and obviously a bunch of other changes as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is kind of a little deep dive into one of the, I would say, lesser-known actors of Star Wars, but how they all had extremely important roles. One of just a few items in our collection. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll be doing some more at a later date. Until then, may the Force be with you.